Every year, on the anniversary of the mine collapse, the town's church bell rang 47 times at exactly 6:14 a.m. once, for every man who never came back up. Nobody had rung it by hand in 30 years. Nobody knew who still did. The Millhaven Colliery collapsed on a Tuesday morning in October of 1974, trapping 62 men nearly half a mile underground. Rescue crews worked around the clock for 9 days, pulling survivors out in agonizing, uneven waves. Some crews found alive on day 2, others not found at all until the mine was finally, permanently sealed. When it was over, 15 men had survived, 47 had not. The town built a memorial wall outside Street Agnes Church the following spring, 47 names carved into grey stone, and the church bell, an old iron bell that had hung in that tower since 1889, became the way the town marked the anniversary every October 14th. At exactly 6:14 a.m., the time the collapse was first reported, the bell would ring 47 times, slow and deliberate, one toll for each name on the wall. For the first 15 years, everyone knew who rang it: Father Dominic Russo, the parish priest who'd personally administered last rites to 7 of the recovered bodies, who considered the ritual as much a duty as any mass he ever gave. He rang it himself every year until his death in 1989, insisting on doing it alone, climbing the narrow bell tower stairs well into his 70s rather than delegate the task to anyone younger. After Father Russo passed, the town assumed the tradition would end, or at least change hands publicly, with some formal announcement of who'd take over the responsibility. Instead, the bell simply kept ringing, 47 tolls every October 14th at exactly 6:14 a.m. for 35 years straight, with nobody in town ever seeing who climbed the tower to do it. The church's newer priests, arriving one after another over the decades, each assumed the tradition had simply been quietly assigned to someone before their arrival, a groundskeeper, perhaps, or a devoted parishioner with a key. None of them ever investigated closely enough to find out otherwise, treating the mystery with the particular reverence small towns often extend to things too sacred to interrogate. It was Father Isaiah Cole, the church's newest and youngest priest, only 2 years into his post, who finally decided the tradition deserved an answer rather than continued assumption. He arrived at the church at 5 a.m. on October 14th, nearly an hour before the bell was due to ring, determined to finally witness whoever had been faithfully climbing that tower for over 3 decades. He found the tower door locked, as it always was, key held only by the church office. He found the narrow stone stairwell empty, dust undisturbed on steps that hadn't seen regular foot traffic in years. He climbed all the way to the bell chamber itself and found it exactly as it always was, empty, quiet, the old iron bell hanging motionless in the pale pre-dawn light. He sat down on the stairs to wait, half expecting to catch someone slipping past him in the dark, some elderly parishioner with a hidden key and a lifelong secret. At exactly 6:14 a.m., the bell began to ring. Nobody climbed the stairs. Nobody touched the rope. Father Cole sat frozen, watching the bell swing in slow, deliberate arcs entirely on its own, tolling once, twice, continuing in perfect, unhurried rhythm, exactly 47 times, before falling completely still again. He didn't tell the congregation what he'd witnessed. He wasn't entirely sure what he'd witnessed himself, and some experiences he'd come to understand in his short time as a priest weren't meant to be explained so much as respected. It was old Mrs. Aldridge, 93 years old, the last living survivor of the collapse, who finally gave him something close to an explanation 3 years later, during what both of them quietly understood might be one of their final conversations. "You went up there," she said, not a question, holding his hand in the hospice room where he'd come to sit with her, the way he'd come to sit with most of the town's oldest members in their final weeks. "Father Russo told me once, years before he passed, that you'd come eventually. Said the church always sends someone curious enough to ask, sooner or later." "What did you see all those years ago?" Father Cole asked gently. "What actually happened down there that made this bell mean so much?" Mrs. Aldridge was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant, seeing something 47 years and a half-mile underground away. "My husband was one of the men who didn't come back up," she said finally, "but he wasn't one of the ones they found right away. Took them 6 days to reach where he and 11 other men had been trapped in a pocket of air that shouldn't have lasted more than a day, maybe two at most, by any calculation anyone made afterward. What kept them alive that long? They didn't know, Mrs. Aldridge said. None of the survivors from that pocket could explain it, not with any certainty. They just said that somewhere around day 3, when the air should have run out completely, they started hearing something, faint, rhythmic, almost like a bell, though there was no possible way any sound from the surface could have reached them at that depth. Father Cole felt something cold move through his chest. They said it kept time for them, Mrs. Aldridge continued. Kept them counting, kept them believing someone up above hadn't forgotten they existed, kept them holding on past the point their bodies should have given out. When they finally reached the surface, 6 of the 11 men in that pocket were still alive. My husband wasn't one of them, but he made it 5 of those 6 days believing help was coming, because of whatever it was they heard down there. And you think the bell? I don't think anything, Father, Mrs. Aldridge said, a faint, tired smile crossing her face. I just know that bell has rung every single year since, whether Father Russ was strong enough to climb those stairs or not, whether anyone alive today has a key or not. I've stopped needing an explanation for it. I've just started being grateful someone, or something, decided 47 men deserve to be counted every single year, whether the living remembered to do it ourselves or not. Father Cole never told the wider congregation what he'd witnessed in the tower, or what Mrs. Aldridge had told him in her final weeks. He simply started arriving early every October 14th after that, not to investigate anymore, but to sit quietly on the tower stairs and listen, the way he imagined Father Russo must have done in his own final years, once curiosity had fully given way to something closer to reverence. The bell still rings every October 14th, at exactly 6:14 a.m., 47 times, slow and deliberate. Nobody living has ever been seen ringing it. Nobody living, at this point, particularly wants to be the one to find out how.